A lot of football fans around the country, not even necessarily Packer fans, that are really wishing some good things for Aaron Rodgers.
3rd down and 8. Pressure on Manning, and down he goes, and there's the first for Chris Long.
Chris Long, he's going against McKenzie, and you see that Ward wants to try to give a little help. He doesn't give much. He just keeps playing. And Chris Long, and then Eli Manning started working his way and gave him a lane.
On that play. The tallest wide receiver ever drafted by the Bills, James Hardy. On 2nd and goal, pump fake, Edwards in trouble and takes a sack. Chris Long, the number 2 pick overall, son of Hall of Famer Howie Long. Relentless, getting to the quarterback, and a sack for the rookie.
Now just watch it. They are really good at getting off the ball. You talk about Chris Long. He's working his way right at that. Comes in underneath as he line up on the left side of your screen. It comes underneath Jason Peters to be able to get the sack.
Matt Castle, not the 206 yards passing, but the 2 INTs. 3rd and 10 now for the Patriots.
Welker's been the guy.
He is pressured and dropped for the first time today. It's the rookie Chris Long.
That's what they've been wanting to do, get the pressure. Watch Chris Long right here, 72. Just comes under. Just a great job. That got a little twist going. Just comes inside. Great job, him and Leroy Glover working that game inside. Long gets the sack. Lost a lot of money this year, though. Those crackback blocks, breaking guys' jaws and everything.
Under 7 to go. Castle dropped again by Chris Long. There is a flag.
Holding, offense, number 72. Penalty is declined. 2nd down.
Yeah, didn't help him at all. Watch Chris Long. He's just going to come inside of Matt Light. Good job inside, knocks those hands down. Matt Light has to hold him. Still doesn't stop Chris Long from getting the sack on Castle. You know, I said Chris Long is really starting to come on. He's not thinking as much anymore. Now he understands what
time in yards for the Rams, and to think he's not even halfway to Brett Favre. Speaks a lot of the accomplishments of the future Hall of Famer. Stafford in trouble. A missed sack initially by Ryan, but he's cleaned up.
Brett Favre, Ron, I played against. I think I might have been personally.
Again, go with the draw, go with the screen. Try and get something very sure-handed that keeps this clock running.
It is Reggie Bush in the backfield. Breeze is pressured and dropped by Chris Long. His 2nd sack of the season.
I think his knee's feeling pretty good. You can see the isolation on the bottom of the screen with Thomas one-on-one. Chris Long is coming off the edge one-on-one. Drew Brees looks for the hits to Thomas. He looks to the swing to Reggie Bush. Good coverage by the Rams.
Now it's on Matt Leinart on a key 3rd down. Holding the ball. Here comes pressure. Sack. Chris Long with his 3rd sack, and it couldn't be a bigger one. And that's a 3 and out for Arizona.
And you watch the coverage. Quincy Butler outside on Larry Fitzgerald. We've been talking about them winning one-on-ones all day. Well, not right here. Steve Breston covered by James Laurinaitis, and Chris Long with that motor chases Matt Leinart down. Chris Long's been coming on. 3 sacks in the last 3 games, and what a big play for this.
And Cutler is going to go down. Chris Long fought off the blocker and came in for the sack. The 2nd time that Cutler
been sacked and loses 10 on this play.
We talked about Chris Williams moving from the right tackle spot over to the left tackle spot with Orlando Pace being out this game, and Chris Long just beats him right from the snap all the way around the corner. Jay Cutler has no chance
for his career, absolutely through the roof.
On 2nd and 2. Pressure from Long. He hit him, the ball pops out. And now the question is, was it ruled a fumble or was his arm going forward? Another good rush by Chris Long, and he is really showing up. You talked about it early, but Chris Long is definitely showing up.
Oh, he's using up Jeremy Bridges out there today. He's had good pressure all day, and here he is. And watch as he just turns the corner on Bridges and is able to finish. I mean, he just sinks that rip in and then gets the hands down. That's the thing you love about it. He sunk that left arm in on the under, on the rip. Bridges countered it with his hands, and then you saw Chris Long go to another counter move with his right hand, knock the hands down, and get a sack, forced fumble.
A sack.
And then Jerome Murphy, some nice hustle working on Kane. They have shut Leon Washington down, and here's a sack. The rookie George Selby, the 7th-round pick out of South Florida.
Here's a look at what Matt Hasselbeck's seeing. He's seeing a whole lot of the St. Louis Rams, and Chris Long, who has consistently got pressure on the quarterback this year, delivers with the sack along with Selby. St. Louis Rams getting there with 4 up front. Steve Spagnuolo told us you have no idea how comforting that is for.
We'll have Mr. Gates to look after much of the day. And that's going to be a matchup we're going to watch very closely, Don. Rivers, he is sacked back at the 29-yard line. Chris Long with his 2nd sack of the year. Long's had not a whole lot of sacks this year, but he's always putting pressure on. A loss of 4 on that play.
Well, believe it or not, Don, Philip Rivers made a mistake here. Antonio Gates, you saw him on the right side of your screen. He ran out to the flat, and he was uncovered. Philip Rivers, yes, under pressure, did not have time to scan the field, but had he had time and
3rd and 7 now from the 24. Hurries 5 times, knocked down 4 in addition to the 3 sacks. There's a 4th sack. Chris Long. There's Jeremy Clary.
Well, I'll tell you what, Chris Long is playing like a man possessed today. He had a half a sack in the first 5 games this year, but today they are not able to answer his effort level, his overall explosiveness today. He's getting in Philip Rivers' face every single opportunity he has.
Scrimmage, run plays, and still be efficient.
First down at the 49 of the Rams. Freeman in trouble, loses the ball, and Tampa Bay will recover. Chris Long forced the fumble, and it was recovered by Donald Penn.
Freeman continues to have trouble reading what's happening in the St. Louis secondary. Once again, they showed pressure, Charles, and then they dropped into a 2-deep zone, 5 underneath, gives the pressure a chance to get there, the rush a chance to get there, and he's looking down his receivers, and there's no one there.
But you always hear about Chris Long, the one word, relentless. Here's a great example. Worked against the blocker, never thinks a play is over, and continued to run down Josh Freeman for the strip sack.
Yeah, and Chris
James Butler, another one who has played for Steve Spagnuolo with the Giants, helping out this young defense. 2nd down and 10 from the 20. Under 6.5 to go in the game. Matt Moore stepping up, loses the ball, flag goes down. And it was Chris Long who has come on so large lately for the Rams came in. We're going to have a holding penalty against the Panthers.
And it will be on Chris Long. He forced the holding penalty by his pressure.
Holding, number 65 offense. That penalty is declined. 3rd down.
Gary Williams, the right tackle here.
See, right there, Chris Long is getting to the quarterback despite Gary Williams hanging on to him. So it becomes a strip sack for Long after that big play. His motor always on.
Good example of it on that first play. You're going to see this team getting in running sets and throwing, getting in passing sets and running. I think they'll look different today in terms of their play calling.
2 tight ends, 2 backs. Moran Norris, the fullback. Off the play fake, Troy Smith. Rush, down he goes. First, Chris Long got there, and then it was finished off by James Laurinaitis. Long has been really getting good pressure the last 3 or 4 games.
He's having an outstanding year. Here he is, number 72. Watch him crease it inside on the tight end. And he's just going to keep working. Vernon Davis had him locked out pretty good there. And you just can't ever let your guard down against Chris Long, because he's better than an overachiever. He's better than a guy that's got
For Broncos, just hanging by that proverbial playoff thread, a loss here, and they are done in the playoff scenario, all but done. Pressure, sack, Chris Long.
That's the absolute one thing you cannot have happen when you're in a hurry-up offense. And conversely, for the defense, the one thing you need, it takes a lot of time. You're down to 43 seconds now.
But then he gets pay dirt standing up.
And Castle struggling with a flag thrown right where Castle was brought down, parallel on the far side. Chris Long with a hit for the Rams.
Number 71, Gary Gibson, and number 72, Chris Long.
Ron Winter chatting it over with Steve Spagnuolo. Now wants to find out what the Rams are going to do.
Illegal shift. Offense number 82 did not reset prior to the snap. That penalty's declined. Makes it 4th down.
Yeah, back-to-back sacks for the Rams. Chris Long with great pressure that time. And Barry Richardson is working against him.
Now the line of scrimmage is the 35. The only question would be, do you accept it to try to push Kansas City out of field goal range here?
Yeah, this is a long field goal, but these are ideal conditions off the carpet.
We welcome those of you who have just joined us. Rams lead the 49ers by 8. 3rd down and 9 for San Francisco, who must win this game to stay alive. Alex Smith is hit. Ball is loose. And it looks like the Rams have recovered. Fred Robbins, the recovery after the hit by Chris Long.
Well, St. Louis's defense has sacked San Francisco's quarterbacks 3 times, and the ball has gone on the ground. They haven't gotten the first 2, but Chris Long this time gets in, gets the strip on Alex Smith, and finally they're able to get that ball, the most critical one of the afternoon.
Alex Smith did all he could do. He was back there at 7 yards. He was coming up.
Down goes Vick. And then he apparently kept that knee from touching the ground, escaped briefly, but he's sacked. They brought Bradley Fletcher off the corner to get him.
Well, Bradley Fletcher's coming off the edge, and it's like Vick had no idea. Nope, he thought the receiver on the edge was going to chip. That's not Michael Vick's fault. There should have been a hat on Fletcher. He thought it should have been picked up. It was a mistake by the receiver who had the edge. Surprised.
Hakeem Nicks, number 88, has been the guy Eli's targeted all night. Bradley Fletcher goes and gets him. Top of the screen.
Back with DJ Ware next to Eli, 3rd and 2. Manning chased by Chris Long and sacked. Combination of Long and Justin Bannon with the sack. And the Giants will punt inside of 8 minutes.
Yeah, Chris Long comes up with a big play here, matched against Kareem McKenzie. Good get off by Chris Long. Jams, pull, and get to the quarterback. Boy, that's quickness right there by Chris Long. This day at Howard.
You were going to get your best performance from this Baltimore Ravens team today.
Here's a 2nd and goal at the 4. Flacco looking over his options from behind. Long has got him down at the 6. It's the first sack for a 3rd consecutive game. Chris Long comes up with a sack for the defense of the Rams.
And Chris Long, just watch how relentless he is. And that's what you love about him when you put the tape on. He refuses to stay blocked. Look, continues to hunt the quarterback. His effort, he's relentless. They tried to cut block him. He stays on his feet and pursues the quarterback. That's why he's...
The Saints, they haven't been shut out in the first half this season. Here comes Chris Long again. Third Ram sack of the game. Yeah, that's more than Drew Brees on average gets sacked per game here in the first half. Chris did it with a spin move on the first time. Watch his hand usage around Charles Brown. He'll knock the hands down, whap right there, and then slide right around him in front of Sproles and finish with his fourth sack. That was huge. This Ram defense is playing lights, saluting the Cardinals. Drew Brees goes down. The pressure from Chris Long. Man, he is feeling it today. Again, it's the speed rush right around the corner. Swats the hands down. And then you even got Jari Evans out there trying to help out Charles Brown. It doesn't get any better than that if you're Chris Long. And he has been able to yards or more in 5 straight. And the Rams are just going to sit back in the shell coverage. And there he gets sacked for the 5th time today, and Chris Long with another one. Chris has been able to whip that offensive tackle, and it doesn't matter whether it's Charles Brown or Pat McQuiston to the outside. He's been able to do it to the inside. This time he'll take an inside charge, go right inside of Pat McQuiston. They were sitting in that cover 2 coverage. Everybody locked up for Al Harris.
Amen for that.
2nd and 10 Cardinals. They motion early, do set. Chester Taylor, the running back, picks up the blitz. But the ball's knocked out of the hands of Skelton. He got it back. Chris Long with a huge play.
Now you're going to see Spagnuolo call a timeout now, Sam, because they got the play they wanted with the negative play. The Rams went with a 2-man, 2 safeties, man underneath, got the pressure. Now the clock is on their side. Call the timeout. 3rd and long, get the ball back.
Little over a minute remaining with the game tied at 13. This is a loss of 16. Great play by Chris Long.
And we haven't mentioned Chris Long's name at all hardly today, and he gets the bull rush, not the speed rush, able to move Jeremy Bridges right into the front of John Skelton and then come up with the sack. What a great play by Chris Long.
His first.
Play action, looking for Cribbs. It wasn't there, and down goes McCoy. Chris Long.
This is great. Watch Chris Long. First of all, he's in the 4-point. Great job. You know what he is? He's a worker when he rushes the passer. But what I love is right there, stop. Go back a little bit. Can you go back just a little bit for me? Right there. The first thing he does is he looks to the sideline to find out where the line of scrimmage is, to find out if this is a sack or not. He wants a sack.
At the 14-yard line. And Chris Long, the ball is loose, is all over Tavares Jackson, and he is finally called down for the sack.
How much do you love Chris Long's motor and his game? He's got a bum wheel. He's got a bad left ankle. Look at his vision. That play was made with his eyes and with his head.
Now we assume they're going to credit Chris Long with that sack as Seattle goes to the hurry.
Cardinals start from the 19. Heaney Wells, the running back. Todd Heap motions. Off the play fake. Skelton being rushed. In trouble. Chased by Chris Long. He's got him. 10th sack of the season for Chris Long. And he's had a sack in each of his last 5 games.
He has been playing so well, and this is just his relentlessness. You can see 73 there. Brandon Keith, Jeremy Bridges, they brought him over. They've got an extra lineman in for protection, but you can't stop Chris Long when he has that relentless pass rush.
Problem is, because of his knee and really all season long, he's got no touchdown, so he's not been the impact player they thought he would be down here in the red zone.
Alex Smith in the arms of Chris Long. Goes down.
And there's number 11 on the season for Chris Long, a career high. He's playing really on one leg with an ankle. Gets good pressure up inside. Want you to watch the defensive tackle here. Get the initial pressure.
Chris is going to take the outside and then just keep his eyes open and make this play with his eyes. See, Freddie Robbins, good pressure inside, forces Alex to step to the side, and Chris Long was right there waiting for him.
And the 49ers have called timeout.
Watching Spagnuolo on tape and his defenses, he goes, he's the pioneer of all of these crazy zone pressures.
Hoping to get 12 or 15, but instead Chris Long gets another sack. His 12th of the year. Robert Quinn was involved as well. 6 straight games with a quarterback sack for Chris Long. So at the half, the 49ers lead the Rams 9-0, trying to clinch the NFC.
Good run stuffer. That's fun to watch those two go at it.
On 2nd and 6. Ball. With all kinds of time. Running out of time now. Hit from behind and goes down.
There's Chris Long, number 13.
That's sack number 13 on the season.
That's sack number 13. And this is Andy Dalton. Just holds on to it way too long. He gets away the first time. Now the one good thing he did was he secures the football. He's got 2 hands. Well, he does not. I take it back. I thought he tucked his right hand onto the football. He didn't.
Fortunate. 2nd down and 15. Fake to Bush. Pocket slowing down, and Cutler is going to be grabbed and tries to get the ball out. I don't know if there were any Bears as eligible receivers, but it was Chris Long and James Laurinaitis both coming in, and right now the Rams are beating up on the offensive line of the Bears.
Yeah, and they're bringing pressure. They're bringing extra guys. They bring 6 right here, collapse in the pocket, really nowhere for Cutler to go. And they're going to call it a sack prior to the potential intentional grounding.
And the first sack of the game, and the lead right here. Well, that's not a bad percentage.
And those were both on screens, though, so we'll see if the Rams can will have adjusted to that.
And Cutler can't get away, and down he goes back to the 35, and it's Chris Long with the sack. It's the 2nd of the game, and the Rams only had 2 sacks in the first 2 games combined. They lose 10 here.
Well, anytime you have Chris Long on a running back mismatch, Chris Long will beat you every time. His first sack of the year, but has been pressuring quarterbacks constantly. Chris Long has become a great football player in this league. Relentless pressure. He does it week in, week out. It pays off on a sack and a big.
A shout out to a good friend, speaking of the Colts,
Chuck Pagano, and who we'll talk about after this 3rd down play.
3rd down and 6 to open the 2nd quarter. Pressure coming from Long, and down he goes. Chris Long with a sack, his 3rd of the year.
Keep in mind, last week, Bobby Massey gave up 4 sacks. Here's Long. Good get off on a key 3rd down situation. Speed rush, uses his hands. That's all Chris Long. Quickness and hustle. And remember, Bobby Massey, boy, did he struggle last week against Miami. Cameron Wake beat him 4 times around the edge.
How about the tracks?
The tackle was rushing the passer. He got too far upfield and got caught, and Reggie Bush creased him with a 9-yard run.
Reggie in the slot as a receiver on 2nd down 1. Go. Tannehill goes down to the arms of Chris Long. His 4th sack of the year.
There's Chris, 91, coming off the edge. Look at that inside move, just right past Jonathan Martin. He had a fan protection offensively, which means the whole offensive line fans to the outside, which put Chris Long on the offensive guard. Chris ran right by him.
But Jeff Fisher's team with a penalty wiped that out and pushed him back.
Well, Chris, and coaches hate pre-snap penalties, and there have been 2 at the end of this game in such important situations. The Danny Amendola 80-yarder right at the start of OT down inside the 5-yard line, brought back for illegal formation, and then a delay of game. Those kill coaches.
A big 3rd down here with 2 minutes remaining in overtime. That's Colin Kaepernick, who gets sacked. Chris Long with a big play. Quentin Michael helping out as well, and now they're going to have to give the ball up.
Yeah, that's the worst thing that could possibly happen for the St. Louis Rams, pushing them right out of potential field goal opportunity, or excuse me, San Francisco. And it's Chris Long right here who gets matched up on Frank Gore. Excuse me, that's Frank on Quentin Michael, and then Chris Long comes to the inside and is able to get a huge sack. And the Rams use their last
time to prepare for the personnel, and he's been impressed by this young Rams defense. His team is in a 7-0 hole. Play action. Sanchez steps up. Sanchez goes down. Chris Long with the heat on Mark Sanchez.
6 sacks now on the year for Chris Long. As the Rams, the other thing that impressed Sanchez was the speed of this defense. One of the fastest defensive ends in the game here is Chris Long, as he fights off a weak block by Sean Green. Sean Green's got to stay up.
If Cromartie's just a decoy, or if he can play a legitimate role here on offense, set up on the outside. Sanchez looks, steps up. Sanchez is sacked again. It's Chris Long. 3rd sack of the day for this St. Louis defense.
And the 2nd sack for Chris Long here in the first half. Long in his sprinter stance here. Watch him go right by Austin Howard here. Pushes him to the outside, dips inside, and there's Sanchez trying to escape the pocket.
Long telling us that Jeff Fisher has chipped
down and be safe and play another down. It's a 3rd and 4.
Johnson's had the hot hand. He's up top, but the pressure is there. No place for Fitzpatrick, and he's going to go down. 3rd sack of the day for the Rams. Chris Long, along with Kendall Langford, they've been applying the heat all this first half.
Well, they're getting such a good push on that offensive line now. They've turned the protection and brought the back all the way across to block him. That's just tough duty for any back. They turned it to pick up all those guys inside, but now the back's isolated on the end. The Bucks.
You're right, Coach, and look way up top. Doug Martin is split out. Empty backfield for Freeman. Martin comes back in. Freeman in trouble. Freeman will go down. Chris Long. 8.5 sacks now on the season for Long.
Well, he just did such a good job with his leverage on this thing. As he came off the edge here, he's going to watch his angle. Oh, see the swat and come right back inside. Well, you got to be a strong individual to hit that, take that right arm and move that tackle like that.
We talked briefly before the game. He said he was just having fun and enjoying it. He's got a lot of help around him now.
Russell Wilson.
And they're going to get him. Chris Long with his 9th+ sack of the season.
And this is what we talked about in the opening of the show here, is watch them keep Russell Wilson inside the pocket and not letting him escape. You get good edge pressure from Chris Long, who ends up really running all the way around the back end because of the good containment and the disciplined rush of the other 3 defensive linemen.
Mario Hagan, good play for him in this drive.
Jolon Dunbar beating pressure off the slot.
It's 1st and 5, pressure coming, and they throw Russell Wilson to the turf. Chris Long, his 2nd sack of the game.
You got to love this, Chris, and this is really all about coaching. And to me, Jeff Fisher brings pressure off the edge and brings pressure with extra guys to get one-on-one matchups for Chris Long. Well, Chris doesn't even get blocked. They end up sending Laurinaitis that way. They send Jolon Dunbar that way, hoping that they'll get their best pass rushers matched up one-on-one. That was a bust in.
Defensive coordinator and with Dave McGinnis and Jeff Fisher. That's who's really been. It's a group effort calling the defensive plays, but it all goes through Jeff Fisher. 3rd and 2 from the 20. Russell Wilson is going to be sacked back at the 32, and Chris Long got there first.
He is awesome. Chris Long, that's sack number 3, and he is just rocking it off the edge. And what you love about Chris Long, who's coming from a stand-up here, is Russell Wilson has escaped a lot of pass rushers when they get their hands on him. And here, I mean, he tries to squirt out the side, and Chris, with those hands, just locks onto that jersey and grabs Russell Wilson. And also, good job by William Hayes coming around and containing it, but Chris Long is...
Got 7 more.
8-man front saying you're not allowed to run on us.
This time they fake it to him, and Kaepernick now running around and going down. And Chris Long picks up the sack. Michael Brockers helped him. Second sack of the night.
Chris Long is relentless. He's on the tight end, McDonald here. This is a typical Chris Long play. Bench presses the tight end. Now here comes a fullback and a guard. Eyes on the quarterback. I'm being held. I'm still going to fight through, and I'm going to get there. So was it a coverage sack? Yeah, but without the effort and the ability of Chris Long, it doesn't happen.
You take away the beard and a...
Slides in. You're not supposed to hit him. And Gabbert took a nice halfway decent shot there.
1 of 5 on 3rd down for Jacksonville so far. Gabbert loses the football. There's a scramble for it.
Jacksonville kept control as Maurice Jones-Drew ends up with that ball was bouncing around like a rubber Easter egg. And Maurice Jones-Drew finally ends up with it. Gabbert steps up into the pocket, looks, he's going to go to his right, and then sees the end, Chris Long coming in. Long forces the fumble. The ball's bouncing around, finally bounced all the way out here to where Maurice Jones-Drew grabs it. And this ball bounced around like it had eyes and didn't want to be found. See there, it finally makes its way out.
Gideon picked up extra yards. Ben Tate is in from the 23. Shot goes down. Chris Long. And the ball is out. The play is blown. Looks like it has been blown dead for a sack, but no fumble. And Schaub is reaching for that right ankle, lower leg area.
It just looked like the way Chris Long came down on him. It didn't look right. Matt Schaub now didn't want to unload that ball. He thought that Ogletree or Laurinaitis was going to pick it off, held on to it, and ended up, looks like, getting hurt.
Schaub out with...
Ram corners continue to challenge these Seattle wide receivers, and they continue to crowd the box.
3rd and 2 for Russell Wilson, and another sack, this one for Chris Long.
Nobody blocked him. It's a sprint out to Russell Wilson's right, and no one blocks Chris Long. I don't know what Seattle's got in mind here, but Zach Miller was laid out of his stance, and Chris Long jetted out of his stance for another sack. I'm worried about Russell Wilson. He's been hit way too often.
A good punt by Hecker forces Wilson and the Seahawks to start their own 8. His own end zone in trouble, and Wilson tries to bring the ball all the way back out to prevent the safety, and they will, just back to the 1-yard line.
This is embarrassing. They're just running through gaps. Nobody's blocking linebackers. Here's Jolon Dunbar. Should have had the safety, but he's been sacked on 4 of his last 5 passes, and this isn't the biggest quarterback in football. I'm amazed at how the Rams have gotten after this offense.
Play now. See if that rocket arm and that tight revolution with the big hands can get into a small window on 3rd and 7. Wilson in trouble. Sacked again. Chris Long. Chris Long and Robert Quinn. Rare night on the big stage, and they have been big time against these backup tackles for Seattle.
I don't care who plays tackle against Chris Long and Robert Quinn. These are great pass rushers, and they've done it all night long. I tip my hat to the effort of the Ram defense, and their cornerstones are Chris Long and Robert Quinn. They've given their
for the Rams. So 1st and goal. Donald Brown is Trent Richardson, excuse me, is in the backfield. Looks in trouble, and he's going to go down. And Chris Long with a sack. He came in with 5.5. Scored the first points of the game on a fumble return.
Tough protection. They try to kick the guard out to block Chris Long coming around the corner. And Jeff Linkenbach, they call that a molly protection. He's got to get out from the right guard position and block Chris Long. A major mismatch in athleticism. And to boot, Andrew Luck was rolling out that way. That's hard. Nice sack by Chris.
Third sack.
Low snap. And Glennon sacked by Chris Long all the way back to the 36-yard line. And Glennon having trouble getting up. We have reached the 2-minute warning and a 4th down coming up as they'll check on Glennon during the timeout. Down 10
for Seattle. Wow. Russell Wilson has it. And run out of bounds. Excellent defense. Chris Long didn't give Russell much to work with.
Good play by Chris Long. Good play by Alec Ogletree, because they're going to try to drop the tight end, Jean-Pierre, and then roll him out to the corner of the end zone. Chris Long does not give up contain. Alec Ogletree splits the difference between the quarterback and the extra tight end. No one for Russell to throw to. Well played.
They set it up.
If he can make some of the throws a quarterback has to make in this league.
3rd and 12. Carr in trouble again and sacked. And guess who? Chris Long. Welcome back, Mr. Long.
You think he's happy? Boy, we saw him on the sidelines last week in that Chargers game, just chomping at the bit, the energy, the passion that he brings. He is a fantastic player. I had the luxury and the honor of playing with his dad for the LA Raiders back in the day, and Chris was just a little...
Play your game plan, and I think right now you're going to watch out with that trips look top at the bunch. I think they're going to come up with something.
3rd down and 2, and they're going to throw it, and Cousins runs out of time, and Aaron Donald along with Chris Long combined to make the stop, and that protection can break down in a hurry, and a loss of 7.
Aaron Donald right here on Sean Laval. He's coming up. He has been one of the most disruptive defensive tackles, and I've been watching defensive line play for 13 years. He is the best young defensive tackle I have seen come into the NFL.
Boy, that's a mouthful.
On 3rd down, and they were 55% last week. That is a big difference and a huge change.
2nd down and 9. Cousins going to go down. Didn't get rid of it fast enough, and he needs to do just that as Nick Fairley, the former Lion, and Chris Long combined, and a loss of 4. Remember, 6 sacks in the opening game. They lose 4 yards here.
That's only the 2nd sack. This is a huge change from last week to this week. That one's a coverage sack. You see Cousins trying to look downfield.